So hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Debbie Cavness. I'm the Alumni Director here at SUNY ESF. And we're very glad that you could join us today for our first ever craft beer event featuring 4 of our very own alumni. So today we have with us, I'm going to just ask him to wave, Isaac Prush from Buried Acorn, local one. We love the name, Buried Acorn, very fitting. We have Kevin Kane from Lithology Brewing out in Farmingdale out on Long Island. And then we have the father-son duo of Jeff Tennick and Kurt McDonald from Summerhill Brewing. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I just did want to mention that you do have an opportunity to ask questions. So if any of our viewers have questions for our alumni, please feel free to use the Ask the Question box. And then we'll try and get to as many of those questions as we can at the end. So I'm going to introduce our first brewer, Isaac. So as I said, Isaac is from Buried Acorn right here in Syracuse. He is a 2018 grad from in bioprocess engineering. And he actually started at Buried Acorn with an internship and now works there full time. So I would like to welcome Isaac, and I'm going to have you take it away and introduce yourself, kind of talk a little bit about your process, and then go into your beers that you're going to be showing us today.
All right, thank you, Debbie. That was a kind introduction. Like she said, I work at Buried Acorn right here in Syracuse. I started with an internship in 2017, just before they opened. And then when I graduated in 2018, I started there full time. A few months later, obtained the position of general manager and just sort of oversee day-to-day operations and make sure that everything's running smoothly. Debbie wanted us to talk a little bit about sustainability. It's something that the owners at Buried Acorn do actually care about quite a bit. They don't own their building, so unfortunately they're not able to do a whole lot of renovations and things. They wanted to do solar panels and water recapture systems, but unfortunately it's not allowed. We do, however, reserve a lot of our brewing water, and we do heat captures to reduce the amount of gas that we use when we're heating up water for brewing. And then on top of that, our spent grain, rather than throwing it away or disposing of it, most breweries will have it given to a farmer, a local farmer, and they'll use it as feed. So it's sort of a way of utilizing everything from the brewing process, something that we're pretty proud of. As far as my work at Buried Acorn, I don't do a whole lot of the brewing. I'm assistant brewer most times, but mostly I do a lot of their, I work with the heat exchanger that seems to break very often. I fix things, I'm the handyman, so I don't do a whole lot of the brewing like the other guys might. But for our beers, we have today, I've got a Hot Whip, which is one of our flagship beers, one of the really popular ones here in Syracuse. It's a pretty standard American IPA. Crack it for a second. Like I said, pretty standard. I'm just trying to get a pour for you. It is a little on the hazy side, but not overwhelmingly. It's not very bitter at all. We use more fruited citrus hops. Our yeast strain that we use for brewing is a Lithuanian strain, Kavik yeast. It's a very active, very highly reactive yeast. We can turn around a 40-barrel tank in about a week from mash in to packaging, which is pretty fast time turnaround for a beer. Usually it takes a little bit longer than that. So we definitely produce this at a higher volume than anything else that we make. As far as the flavor profiles, for those of you that were able to obtain it, you'll notice that it's a lighter beer. It's not very hoppy and bitter like most IPAs you would expect to taste. We really wanted something that was more well-rounded that everyone could enjoy. And anyone who wasn't able to find Hot Whip, if you did go to your local brewery, whatever state you may be in, I'm sure they were able to accommodate, give you something that's very similar. I'm just going to take a taste for myself here. So it's very, very light, crisp, good summertime beer, nice and refreshing, not overwhelming at all, but probably one of our best-selling beers for sure. Then the second one, which is one of my more favorite beers here, is called Khaleesi's. Most of what our brewer does is he makes barrel-aged beers. So we have, I think, 58 barrels now. They're all reclaimed wine barrels from California, white wine, port wine, and red wine. Our beers will spend about anywhere from 8 to 14 months in the barrels, just sort of aging, and then they'll go into a blending tank based on the brewer's evaluation of the beer. This one in particular is a golden sour, so it's a lighter hue to it, and then it's aged on hibiscus flowers, so it has a little bit of a pink tint to it. And when it first comes out of the tank, it's very bright, very colorful, and then over time it starts to lose its brightness a little bit, gets a little bit more brown in the bottle, but it still does look a little pink. And if you smell it, it's very aromatic, very, what's the word I want? It's almost like strawberries. It doesn't have strawberries in it, of course. It's just hibiscus flower. It's very, very fruity smelling. And it does have a pretty harsh tartness to it. That's a result of the bacteria that's in the barrels. They produce lactic acid, and it makes the beer sour. And then once the beer comes out of the barrels and goes into the blending tanks, it sits for about 2 more months until it reaches the desired alcohol level, and then it goes into bottles where it naturally carbonates. The microbes that eat up the sugars and produce CO2, and then you get a finished product. This particular bottle, from start to finish, probably took about 18 months to today. So it's a long process, but it's definitely worth it. It makes a very tasty beer. I don't know if there were any questions. I don't know if I have access to the questions or if that's something Debbie needs to forward to me, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So I haven't seen any questions pop up yet, but we're going to keep an eye on that, and I think we're going to try and take all of the questions at the end. So thank you very much. So which one is your favorite, Isaac?
Of these two, definitely the Khaleesi's. I'm not a huge fan of IPAs, but I do enjoy the Hot Whip. The Khaleesi's and all of our sour beers are very top-notch in my opinion.
Yeah, sour beers I think have become really popular over the last couple of years. It was something that I'd never even heard of maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was definitely, started out as more of a West Coast craze as far as in the United States. It's just like IPAs, it eventually made its way to the East Coast, and it's becoming more and more popular.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you very much. So we'll see you a little bit later when we bring you back on at the end with all of our questions. So thank you, Isaac. Now we're going to bring Kevin Kane from Lithology Brewing up. Hi, Kevin. Thank you for joining us today. So Kevin is actually an environmental studies major. He's a licensed professional geologist by trade. He's currently working as a project manager in environmental remediation. But he started out as a home brewer, and then it founded Lithology in 2014. And then just 6 years later, in 2021, he was named the Long Island Brewery of the Year by the New York International Beer Competition. So that's quite an accomplishment. So Kevin is the owner and brewer there at Lithology. So I'm going to hand it over to Kevin to talk about kind of what you do out at Lithology and talk about some of the beers that your most popular ones. I think we both keep trying to unmute you at the same time, so I'm going to let you unmute you.
Okay, sorry.
There we go. That's
okay. Yeah, so I graduated in 2005, like you were saying, and I went into environmental consulting, and then found my way to environmental contracting, working in the metro area. During that time, I met 2 of my partners that we started homebrewing a lot, and eventually just made the leap and started a full-time brewery. So I am the head brewer, but I don't brew all the beer anymore. One of my other partners is there full-time doing that, and we have some other people that help. But I do like to jump in every now and again and do some beers, especially some like newer one-offs or specialty stuff. We're a New York State farm brewery. I don't know about the other guys, but with our license, we use 60% New York grown ingredients, mainly the hops and the grain. And we get some privileges with that license. So in our tasting room, we can also serve other New York labeled beer, wine, and liquor. So we got a full bar, and it's all from New York made wineries, distilleries, and breweries. Sustainability at our facility. So we also rent where we're at, so we don't own the building, but we try and do what we can. Little things like putting timers on the electrical switches so that they're all censored. People walk in, walk out, they'll turn off on their own. We send our spent grain to a local farm to be composted and used as chicken feed. We reuse our processed water whenever possible, especially like putting the water through our heat exchanger. We'll cycle it back into the tanks and use that for the next brew. Little things like that. Special events, we try and use biodegradable cups rather than just regular plastic that go in a landfill. So yeah, I guess I'll go right into the beer. I'm gonna start with our A-frame Pilsner. This is made with actually all New York grain, 100%. We do use some flake rice, and it's all New York hops. The hops we switch back and forth between Hallertau and Mountain Hood, depending on what we can get from our New York growers. But this one in particular is made with Mount Hood from the Hudson Valley. So I'll pour myself some. So this is just a basic American lager Pilsner. Very light, clean. We use some of the flake rice as an adjunct to get some sugars rather than just the grain, which just makes a cleaner, crisper flavor. The hops are very mild. The notes you do get, a little bit of spice, a little floral, even potentially a little piney. But just an easy drinking, summertime beer. Good for the beach, good for anywhere. Comparable to other American Pilsners lagers, like more closer to like a Budweiser rather than a Bud Light, or a Coors Original than Coors Light. I only have 1 cup, so I drink that real quick. My next one, I don't have a label for, but it's the white. It's a Belgian wit made with chamomile and orange zest. When we came up with this recipe and when we first started the brewery, Breaking Bad was really popular, so that's where we got the white from, Mr. White. So that's we stuck with the name, but it's also a Belgian wit, so it kind of played. It's a little hazier. It's a wheat beer, so it's got a lot of wheat. Wheat does not produce clear beers. A lot of times wheats are used in the New England IPAs to create that haze. The aroma on here, we use a Belgian wit yeast strain, so it's very floral, a little banana, a little spicy when you taste it. You get some citrus from the orange zest. This is comparable to like a Blue Moon, but Blue Moon, they use coriander, which is more like a citrusy spice. We use chamomile instead. That makes it a little more floral, like tea-ish. So also just a very light, easy drinking beer, about 4.5%, and it's enjoyable. That's pretty much all I got on the beer. So I hope you guys are drinking some and enjoying it.
Kevin, thank you very much. I like that you only had 1 glass. So
yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah. My friends that are on would appreciate me chugging that.
Well, that's all right. It was a taste. It wasn't.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite beer that you brew?
The favorite beer I brew is our vanilla porter. I don't have that. It's a seasonal, it's a winter beer, but it's one of my first recipes from home brewing. I thought it was an original idea. I thought I was going to revolutionize the beer industry. And the first day we went to brew it, I went to the beer distributor and there was a vanilla porter by Breckenridge. So it's just, it's still a good beer.
I was going to say, just to show you had a great idea.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
And that would be one of my favorites as well. I like a nice porter.
Yeah, I'm a dark beer person.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on right now. We'll bring you back at the end when we have a couple questions. We've already gotten in a couple of questions, so we'll come back at the end. So thank you. And right now we're going to bring on, as I said, our father-son duo. Actually, it's a whole family affair out at Summerhill Brewing. So we have Jeff, who's in the middle. And Jeff is an EFB grad who worked in the water and soil conservation for a little bit over 40 years before retiring, and kind of made Summerhill Brewing his retirement project, but brought in the whole family. So he also works with his wife, his daughter-in-law, and his son Kurt, who is also an ESF grad. He works in environmental chemistry, and he's currently working with Cornell University, and I'm going to read this, high energy synchrotron source. And Kurt is the head brewer at Summerhill. So I'm going to hand it over to both of you. You can tag team your way through this however you want to do it, and then when we're done, we'll bring everybody back on. So go ahead, take it away.
Okay, I think maybe I'll start on the a little bit about the brewery, and Kurt can add whatever I forget. And then when we get to the beers, it's definitely Kurt. He brews well over 90% of our beer. So we are a farm brewery and a microbrewery. We're in Locke, New York, which is just a little bit west of Cortland, New York. As Debbie said, it kind of, my wife and I had both retired. We were wondering, what are we going to do? We had 46 acres, and we home brewed some, and Kurt's been home brewing even longer. I remember bottling hard cider on a New Year's Eve, probably back in 2003 or 4 with him. So we thought about growing hops, and Kurt said, I think we should make beer. So we licensed our 24 by 24 garage and purchased a 30-gallon brew system. And with the idea, we'll see where this goes. If it doesn't go anywhere, we have a hell of a home brew system. If it does, we'll decide what to do. And within about 6 months, we just had more people than we knew what to do with. It got to the point, it took us about 5 weeks to make enough beer to be open for 10 hours. So it was either get bigger or get out. And so we did build a building. Megan, Kurt's wife, is a chef, luckily. So we have a kitchen. We got a bigger brew system, which Kurt can talk about. And we went to town. I think one of our big things is, as was mentioned before, is local products. Our wine, we don't make any wine, but the wine we have serve at the brewery, the cider, cheese, sausage, all comes within 30 minutes of our building. And pretty much the same with the New York State. All of our beers, except one, has 60% New York State grain and hops in it, and at least the grain, sometimes I'm not always sure. I know it comes from New York, but it may not be exactly real close to us, but all the hops that we use that are New York State hops come from within 30 minutes away from the brewery. So Kurt, I let you fill in and go to the beers.
Source for our grain. It ends up at a local farmer feeding their beef cows. And as you mentioned, we work with the local farmers to get our hops. I think, how did I kind of get started? The school definitely kind of drove me in curiosity. The chemistry program was small. We would end up having an annual picnic, and I guess you'd always get a chance to hang out with your professors and your classmates, and there was always a keg of beer, something local, usually the Middle Ages. So we got this great idea, let's go visit Middle Ages. So my group chemistry class ended up taking a tour. I think that sparked a lot of interest. I think, and then later it just became, as he said, a hobby that just took off. We're busy. I mean, like I imagine these other brewers and just facilities. It's really become pretty interesting to see how it's grown in the last 5 years. Just great support from the local communities. I think when we're brewing, we're really trying to get a good product using New York as much as we can. Hopefully that's helping to build that community aspect that all of us are looking for. And I think when you taste our beers now, Jeff, sorry, which ones did we end up going with? You're muted or something.
So we were doing the Irish Red and the Paper Money.
Okay, so either one you're going to find 100% New York, other than, as he says, the Paper Money ends up using some Citra hops, try to give it that balance. It's a West Coast IPA. When we started in the garage, I just really had to get that beer out there. It was the only classic IPA. It's a classic recipe, classic style. When you talk about IPA, I pulled from that West Coast. Very, easy drinking, a little bit of caramel in there to give it that sweetness, but plenty of hops, butter, bittering, and a couple dry hoppings going in there. I think you'll find this. If it's not our beer, Southern Tier is a New York brewery that's putting out a pretty good IPA that's similar to what we're doing. I think any of your West Coast IPAs would be comparable. Just trying to give it that punch, that IPA, those hops. I think everybody loves them. I think, and then on the opposite side of that, when you say the Irish Red, we named this one after Summerhill longitude, latitude of Summerhill, Ireland. Very malt forward, nice red caramely color there. Nice aromatic flavors coming out of the grains. Not a lot of hop. Try to go with Willamette, like a noble hop there that just balances out some of that maltness, but it's an Irish Red, comparable to like a Killian's, something you're going to find. I started doing this around St. Patrick's Day, really just came about, but it's something that you'll find on our menu in the fall and in the spring. So, unfortunately, I'm at work.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about environmental sustainability. I could just mention when we were in our garage brewery, it was all solar. When we built the new brewery, frankly, we couldn't afford it. Maybe someday. New York State doesn't do a tax credit for small business for doing solar, so that kind of put a kibosh to that. But as far as other sustainability, I mean, the aspect of our building, we put our tasting room and to the south and the east to take advantage of the sun, and have our production facility pretty much on the north and west side, so we don't have to have a lot of windows and stuff to save on energy. Like everyone else, our grain goes to beef cows. I think Kurt might have mentioned that. We also make dog treats out of our spent grain. And we have a windbreak to the north and west of our building. And as mentioned too, we try to conserve our water, particularly when we have hot water, to reuse those types of things. So.
We were pretty fortunate we got to build the building. So when he says, it's spray foam insulation, radiant floor. So, I mean, we're just trying to be efficient as possible there.
Guess we're just waiting on Debbie to jump back in, right?
Yeah, I thought maybe there's some questions. Just trying.
So what's your favorite college beer, guys?
I'm a dinosaur, so it was probably Schlitz.
I was a Keystone guy. Craftier option of the college beer.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty slim pickings back then. Miller High Life or whatever you could find.
All right, so I'm back now. I was hoping I could stay off screen and ask the questions, but so we have a couple of questions, and the first one is actually about carbon dioxide, and I know, Isaac, you actually mentioned this when you were talking. So it's from Brian, and he wants to know, where does the carbon dioxide that's used in the brewing originally come from? So how is it made into a byproduct?
CO2 just comes, it's a byproduct of the yeast fermentation process. So when they consume sugars, they produce carbon dioxide and alcohol. That's how it comes into. I think when I was talking about it, I had mentioned that we allow the Khaleesi's in the bottle carbonates in the bottle rather than in a fermentation tank. So we'll add a priming sugar and just a little pinch of dry yeast to the bottle before we seal it up, and then put it in the rafters for a couple weeks, and it'll carbonate over time.
Okay, thank you. And I know you all mentioned kind of your sustainability efforts, but I had a question do you see anything that's new ideas coming up on the horizon? Maybe doing different things with different byproducts of the brewing process, or anything that you've heard of that you might want to start trying in the future?
There's probably like the chemical cleaners and stuff like that we use. I know there are some biodegradable and more earth-friendly ones. So we have been looking into those too. But the commercial suppliers we use, they don't carry them, so we run into issues like that.
Yeah, and I think as the industry becomes more and more environmentally friendly, there'll be more options for you guys. And it sounds like you guys are really taking advantage of everything that you can right now.
Right.
So actually, I mean, somebody asked, is a Pilsner a lager? So John wants to know, is it the same thing? Is it something different?
Pilsner is a lager. There's lager and there's ale, right? And then everything else is one of those. So it's the different type of yeasts that are used, and a Pilsner is made with lager yeast.
Okay. All right. And I like this question. So it says, for the lithology brewing, how do you have time for both consulting and brewing work? How do you do both? And everybody wanted to talk about the name of your breweries, because y'all kind of have distinct names of the breweries. So
I don't have time for both, but I do both, I guess. So it's just a lot of late nights, early mornings kind of deal, and just trying to work it all in. I have a partner that's there full time, which makes it easier. So he does a lot of the day-to-day operations, and I do a lot of like the planning and the back end stuff, so I can do that from home or even at work. Don't tell my boss, Our name is lithology, obviously it's a geologic term. So because I'm in environmental contracting and originally consulting, one of my partners is also a licensed geologist. We kind of just pulled the name from there to pay homage to our schooling and our work. The geology of Long Island is pretty unique. So there's good water here, good pizza, good bagels, good beer. It's all from a first filter. Yep. So that's where ours came from.
All right. Isaac, how about you? Buried Acorn. I mean, that's a pretty ESF-y name. I like that it's in Syracuse and it's called Buried Acorn.
Yeah, so a little bit of coincidence there with me working there, not really related to ESF. The owners came up with it. It was actually the owner's wife, because he knew that he was going to do a lot of his beer aging in barrels. Most barrels are oak barrels, so the beer is kind of buried in the barrels. So it was just sort of a flow chart of play on words that eventually ended with buried acorn.
I like it. It still ended up as an ESF name, whether he meant it to or not. So Jeff and Kurt, how about Summerhill?
Summerhill comes from our brewery, and where we live is actually in the town of Summerhill, Cayuga County. It's very rural, no traffic lights, less than 2,000 people population, but home to the 13th president of the United States, Millard Fillmore. Also Elbridge Spalding. So we have one beer named Millard's. Elbridge Spalding, also born in Summerhill in the early 1800s, was a U.S. congressman who sponsored the legislation that created paper currency. So we have paper money IPA. And the biggest industry in town is a nudist colony. So we have Naked Neighbor Amber Ale. So just kind of paying homage to our little township that for being so small has some unique things going on that some other larger places can't claim.
I like it, keeping it local.
Mm-hmm.
And we did have another question, and I know probably a lot of folks would wonder about this. So through COVID, how have you guys been doing through this? I know that it's been tough on a lot of businesses, and especially breweries had to, if they didn't serve food, that was always an issue, and closing early. So how have you guys kind of made it through? I guess we'll start with Summerhill. So we just ended with you. We'll go back to you.
Yeah, I think we jumped through those hoops when we had to close down for a bit, during the first part, and then it forced us to do online. And we weren't really ready, but kind of pushed us forward. Jeff, I don't know if you want to speak to anything, but I think if anything, it made us advance as much as it maybe set us back.
Yeah. The community was fantastic. I mean, we are kind of out in the middle. We're 10 minutes away from a lot of villages and even a city, but people still have to make a trip up this hill. And the community came out when we did curbside and did online ordering. They came out to pick it up. And so the community support was fantastic. And as Kurt mentioned, it pushed us ahead on our kitchen. We were planning a kitchen anyways, with Megan, Kurt's wife, being a chef. Probably just got it up and running a little sooner than we might have otherwise. And the food has helped tremendously through COVID as well. So I think we're probably a lot better off than many restaurants and bars might be right now.
We're providing local cheeses, local snacks, local beef jerkies, so it definitely helped those businesses too when we had to put food in front of our customers and, something local.
And we thought people, before we had the kitchen going, we just assumed everybody would take the 25-cent bag of chips, and that's not what happened. They were buying $4 bags of jerky. They were buying, we had a local lady making dips for us. They were buying the $8 dips and chips, and not 25-cent potato chips. So.
Right. And that's nice. And I think hopefully a lot of places saw that local support come out for them. Kevin, how did you guys fare through this?
We did all right. A lot of pivoting like everyone else, just changing our business model. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the year, 2020, we decided to just go heavy focus on our tasting room and try and build up sales and stuff there. And then the pandemic hit, and that kind of threw us for a loop. Yeah, just a lot of online, ordering, obviously. So the to-go was a big thing, big support from the community, partnering with other local businesses. We're on a main street. So we made a deal with a pizza place. He made a dough with our beer, and then they would buy a pizza kit, at-home pizza kit with a 4-pack of our beer. So stuff like that. A lot of happy hours. We did a lot of happy hours for like corporate companies and stuff prior to the pandemic. So we're working with them doing this kind of thing where we send out tastings in we had 8-ounce cans. This happened to have a lot in stock. So we would do 4-pack, mixed 4-packs in 8-ounce cans, send them out, get online, do a tasting with everyone. And it was a way for them to stay connected too, and a way for us to kind of get things going. And then just figuring it out as we go.
I think everybody's changing on the fly. So
Right.
you guys seem to have adapted very well. I know Buried Acorn, how did you guys do through this? Hopefully our local community came out and supported.
Yeah, absolutely. We did see a lot of support from the community. I still remember it was March 16th. We got word that we had to close our doors. No more business for us. It was definitely an adjustment that we had to make. We very quickly started doing. We put together an online store, and we're offering beer deliveries, which we weren't even entirely sure we were legally allowed to do. But eventually, we did get word that that was okay. We're doing curbside pickup right off the bat. Later on into the summer and through the fall, we partnered with Eden, which is a newer restaurant in downtown Syracuse. They had basically just flipped their entire business into sort of a CSA box type program. So they were partnering with local farmers and businesses and smaller businesses to offer produce and cheese, dairy products, eggs that people could order weekly. So we started selling a lot of stuff for them so they could kind of have a second avenue of business. And then now starting to pick back up again, finally. Winter is always hard for bars and breweries and businesses. After the holidays, business just slows down so much. This year was especially the case. We're facing an aluminum shortage now. It's very difficult to get cans just because every brewery is canning more than they were, because partially because businesses are afraid to invest in kegs. So local bars aren't buying up as many kegs as they would because they don't want to be closed down again and then have all that beer go to waste. So they're mostly buying cans. So our can production has gone up significantly, and all of our kegs are just sitting on the ground. So all of the manufacturers of aluminum cans are working full production pace, and they can't keep up with the orders. So it makes it harder for breweries to have access to the cans. And that's just been a bit of a problem for us. We've started switching to glass bottles, which are more expensive, but available. So it's been an adjustment for sure.
It's interesting that you brought that up. Like that's something like a side of this that I never would have even thought of. More demand for aluminum, and now you can't get that. You can't meet the demand. So it's nice to see how many of you worked with other local companies to try and help each other out. Is that something that you think will continue? So these partnerships that you've already started, that you'll continue along those lines as well? That's nice to see. Very nice to see. Brian would like to know, what are the advantages and drawbacks of New York climate when it comes to brewing? So does that affect you guys at all? I mean, I know you don't. Does anybody grow their own hops?
We started to, but
you started
that endeavor became more time consuming than brewing. And, the demand for the beer was so high that hops unfortunately fell to the farmer. And
Yes.
Brewer.
We have some good growers nearby, and it's like, let them do it. There's four of us trying to make beer and make pizza. Left little time for taking care of hops the way they should be taken care of.
But in terms of the climate aspect of the question, the hops are like wine grapes. Different regions, different climates create different flavor profiles. Different hops grow in different regions, stuff like that. So if there is a shift, it could change, what hops you can get where and what they taste like.
Oh, wow.
And even with grains too.
So as a New York brewery, what percentage of your hops have to come from New York State?
If you're if you're a licensed farm brewery, which is a separate license, it's 60% right now. Eventually it's going to go up. If you're a microbrewery, you don't have to use any.
Oh,
so it just depends on your license. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's percentage of overall ingredients, not just hops, correct?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's 60% hops and 60% other ingredients. So that's just default, but it's at least 60% of the hops.
Okay. And will that continue to go up until it reaches a certain percentage?
Yeah, so they're saying 90%, but if things go well, they can just change it. It's the state liquor authority and it's Ags and Markets working together.
I think climate and like brewing, I like brewing in the summer when I can open the doors. Winter time can kind of close you in, and you're boiling hundreds of gallons of water. Well, it's more, but with all that steam coming off, it's just nice when the weather's nice.
Yeah, I imagine.
So the other part of New York too is, we use maple syrup in our beers, raspberries, blueberries, all grown in New York. So like anywhere, you can find local products that you can add. We have a chili pepper beer, and the chili peppers are grown 10 minutes down the road. So, you work with what's there and what people will find interesting.
Yeah, we're making our beet and carrot beer right now with a local farm. They have a lot of leftover storage crop from last year harvest, so we're trying to incorporate that and see what happens.
So, Kevin, you actually mentioned, depending on what the weather is like, it'll change the taste of the hop. So, is climate change having any adverse effect on what hops you're getting, the flavors that you're getting? Do you notice anything right now? Do you anticipate that?
I don't think anything yet, but I know it is like a concern for the future because it could change the entire available, what's available in the state and the country and everywhere else.
Yeah. And it's farming. I think it's year to year, and if it's a wet year, if it's a dry year, it's variable.
So how do you get consistency in your brews from year to year? So if you do your Paper Money IPA, does it taste a little different year to year? It does.
Yeah, well,
okay,
we try hard. It's the grain, everything.
That's correct.
So Kurt got a shout out for the Chemistry Club field trip. They like that one. So I think that's it for my, everybody's very happy. A couple of people already know Summerhill Brewing, so that's pretty good. And we had an alum down in Georgia that said she had a fun time trying to match up some of their local breweries to what we were doing for a tasting. So very nice. So we're reaching far and wide, and we're hoping that everybody can come up to New York this summer and maybe take a brewery tour or two. We have been scrolling your website addresses across the bottom, so if folks want to check it out, go see everything that they have to offer. I don't believe anybody is shipping right now. Am I correct in that? Anybody shipping their beers across the country yet?
We're just shipping to New York.
Yeah, legally we were only allowed to ship in New York. We put an end to it in the winter. It was just becoming too much of a hassle, too many damaged products and returns. So.
All right, so everybody's in for a road trip then. All right, so I just want to say thank you to everyone on here today. I appreciate you all taking the time to be with us today and share your knowledge with our alumni. I'm sure that they are enjoying it, and hopefully they're going to go out and try and find some beers, if not yours, then some that are similar. So again, I appreciate the time that you guys took today. So thank you very much, and maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Support local breweries.
That's right. Support local. All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
All right, bye.